Matthew writes to his congregation, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And reading from Nehemiah chapter 10. And I'll give you a little background on this. The exiles, those who were exiled in Babylon, have returned to the ruins of their homes. After 100 years in exile, the remnant of the Jews have returned to a battered and broken Jerusalem. They must rebuild the city. They must rebuild the town. They must rebuild their lives. They must somehow rebuild their temple. We also, and after they have relaxed and they've gotten their towns put back together, we also lay on ourselves the obligation to charge ourselves yearly 1/3 of a shekel for the service of the house of our God, for the rows of bread, the regular grain offering, the regular burnt offering, the Sabbaths, the new moons, the appointed festivals, the sacred donations, and the sin offerings, to make atonement for Israel and for all the work of the house of our God. We have also cast lots among the priests, the Levites, and the people for the wood offering, to bring it into the house of our God by ancestral houses at appointed times, year by year, to burn on the altar of the Lord our God, as it is written in the law. We obligate ourselves to bring the first fruits of our soil and the first fruits of all fruit of every tree year by year to the house of the Lord. Also to bring to the house of our God, to the priests who minister in the house of our God, the firstborn of our sons and of our livestock, as it is written in the law, and the firstlings of our herds and of our flocks, and to bring the first of our dough and our contributions, the fruit of every tree, the wine and the oil, to the priests, to the chambers of the house of our God, and to bring to the Levites the tithes up from our soil, to the Levites the tithes from our soil, for the Levites who collect the tithes in all our rural towns. And the priest, the descendant of Aaron, shall be with the Levites when the Levites receive the tithes. And the Levites shall bring up the tithe of the tithes to the house of our God, to the chambers of the storehouse. For the people of Israel and the sons of Levi shall bring the contribution of grain, of wine, and oil to the storerooms, where the vessels of the sanctuary are, and where the priests that minister and the gatekeepers are the singers, and the singers are. We will not neglect the house of our God. Thus ends the reading of the word. You may want to hold somebody's hand, because I'm going to suck it to you today. This is probably one of the toughest sermons I've ever preached. The services to God, the three pillars of Judaism, are following the instructions of the Torah, following the commandments of God. The second of the pillars is to do the mitzvot, that is, to do a service to God, whether it be a physical act of service or a sacrifice, prayer, charitable deeds, calling the Sabbath holy and keeping the Sabbath holy. And the third of the three pillars of Judaism, and I know this is beginning to sound like Wesley's 3 simple rules. The third pillar is to do good for humanity, to take care of your brothers and sisters. Those are the 3 pillars of Judaism. Those are what a good Jew is expected to follow. Matthew's congregation were good Jews, good Jewish Christians. They have obliged themselves, after the turmoil of the exile, to care for the house of God, to care for those who keep the house of God, to never neglect it. I was asked a question when I was writing my papers for the Board of Ordained Ministry. The question that I was asked was, what is one of the greatest challenges that the church faces today in the church's efforts to grow? The United Methodist Church was the second largest mainline denomination in the world a decade or so ago. But its membership has been declining, not because people don't like to be United Methodists, but because they're dying. Not because its message is irrelevant, because I'm sure it is relevant, but perhaps because it takes so much to keep up with the pace of the world. My response to the question that was asked me was to say that the mainline church is made up of many people who have found their spiritual comfort zone and don't want to leave it. There are those who used to keep the Sabbath holy 48 out of 52 Sundays, but now not so much. I think many of you would be surprised if you added up the number of Sundays that you come to church to worship God. People don't do church every Sunday anymore. There are other options, like going to Disneyland, like attending important sporting events, or traveling, or visiting family, or having family visit. There are folks who decide that because they have family visiting, they won't be going to church. They won't be coming to worship God because they have family visiting. Sunday has become a second Saturday. Many people, particularly young people, don't feel a need for church. They don't attend church in order to keep their lives sorted out and on a steady course. They don't come to be comforted because they don't require it. The people who do feel the need for church come because they require comfort, physical as well as emotional. How many of you would admit that you come to church to be comforted, to find solace, to maintain your sanity while you endure constant physical and emotional discomfort? How many of you find that the church is the one steady, unchanging, stable thing in your life where you can find people whose faces are familiar and who think that the way you think, who like the hymns that you like, and who will sit with you and keep you company at fellowship time?